What I've got is a UL 752 level 3. That's a pure polycarbonate sample here. So that's 3 shots, 44 Magnum, right there in the center. And as you can see, there's really, I can run my finger across it, no penetration.
Hey everyone, Mike Witt here and Chase Tobin with Kontek Industries, and this is our 14th episode of Complacency Kills, a Kontek podcast. And today's episode we're going to be focusing on ballistic glass, some of the applications that it has, the differences in material types, and protection levels. So with that being said, Chase, can you give yourself a quick introduction, man?
Yeah, I'm Chase Tobin again. Welcome back to the Complacency Kills podcast. I'm the National Sales Manager covering down on state and local law enforcement. And so a lot of what I do incorporates a lot of this technology into the protection of various municipal buildings, police departments, commercial centers, as it were. So yeah, it's pretty cool to get back in here and talk shop about what we do.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about ballistic glass is that a lot of people just aren't educated on it. They know we get a lot of inquiries all the time. The people understand that they want glass or transparent armor that can protect them, but they don't understand a lot of the variables that go into it, i.e. what kind of material do you really need to protect yourself? What kind of ballistic rating do you need for your particular threat level? And then at the end of the day, also what the cost is, right? So people have just lack of education in that particular space. And so what we're trying to do today is, get that word out of like, hey, here are some considerations that you need. These are some price points that are pretty standard throughout the industry, as well as I definitely want to wrap up at the end with the big misnomer of ballistic glazing or window film on traditional windows versus true ballistic glass, right? Because we also get a lot of inquiries on that as well, yes, and what the difference is.
Yes.
So without further ado, first thing we're going to kind of knock out is, all right, ballistic glass, it's there. You're going to be able to see through it. Typically, most facilities, as much as you can blend in with the existing environment is ideal, and you want to stop bullets, right? So with that being said, can you walk us through kind of the NIJ and UL levels and any other kind of certifications that are typically associated with ballistic glass and what the differences are?
Yeah, for sure. So generally speaking with ballistic glass, right, most times they go on the UL 752 certification. Every now and again you'll get an NIJ cert come across as a spec, but that's generally for maybe a nuclear facility or a Department of Defense facility or something like that. But if we want to kind of keep it simple, if you're at least in my world, and some of the other guys could talk about some of the other verticals we work in, we operate on the UL 752 standard. So UL is Underwriters Laboratory, for those of you who don't know. They have a lab, they test out the ballistic glass and whatever material that they're using. We'll get to that in a little bit. It's got 10 levels. I'm not going to go through each level, but just kind of generally what I see across, the police departments, the banks, the hospitals and things like that, if anybody's using that stuff. I usually see UL 1, I see UL 3 to 4, and I see 8. That's generally what I see.
And what's the major differences between those?
So the major differences are going to be, depending on the material, it's going to be thickness, it's going to the caliber that you're protecting against, and that's pretty much, and how many shots it's going to stop of each caliber. So level 1, for example, is mostly your 9mm rounds. So you're looking at I believe it's 3-shot placement in about a 3-inch triangle, somewhere like that. When you're moving into level 3, you're going to stop. It's 44 Magnum, 3 shots in a about a 3-inch circle, as it were. Level 4, you get into some of your basic rifle protection. So it's going to have some 5.56. I believe it's 1 shot of 5.56, somewhere in that range. That's generally what I see as a spec for most of your federal courthouses, your police departments. 4 is about where we rest in that realm. On the higher end, we get into level 8. We've done some level 8 jobs here at Kontek, plenty of those. Level 8, you're going to be stopping 308 armor piercing, and that's 1 shot in that 3-inch circle. Realistically, could probably stop a little bit more, but that's just a standard that they test it to. So that's what I usually see on the UL standard. If you flip the script over to NIJ standard, so the NIJ standard is 1 through 4. Most of the time we operate on NIJ 3. So NIJ 3 is your 308 protection, kind of like the UL 8 standard. NIJ 4 is up in the higher realms. You're stopping, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and on kind of on that note is you kind of hit on it there, is that there's specific levels that NIJ and UL test to, right? So it'll be very specific, right? So like you said, NIJ3s, 5 shots, 308, and there's a certain particular shot pattern that has to be followed. However, there's a lot of other rounds that same armor set is capable of stopping, right? And so that's why you see in the industry, they're not official ratings, right? But you see stuff for NIJ3+, NIJ4, NIJ4++, and all that craziness, right? So that's one of the things when you're talking to an armor manufacturer, in this case for ballistic windows, right? Like, sure, this is UL8 glass. It never hurts to ask them, hey, have you guys ran tests on what does it actually do against 5.56? How many rounds of 5.56? What type of particular cartridge within 5.56, or projectile does it stop? And then another big piece that people also overlook is the velocity, right? So there's particular velocity ranges that have to be followed for the testing protocol. So shooting lower or higher over those velocities will create a different result. So when you get into specialty rounds, that's something that it could be a 308 round, but if you're running NIJ3, it's 308 ball, right? So the M80 round. So there's particular velocities. So once you get into AP cartridges and stuff like that have a different core or traveling at higher velocities, your results can be different, right? So those are kind of all the parameters that you want to take into consideration. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like you said, we have a pistol set of requirements, right? So those pistols usually range from 9mm up to heavy duty 44 mags and somewhere in that range, right? And then same thing on the rifle side, right? We have everything that goes from 5.56 all the way up to 50 cal AP. So you really need to understand what's your threat environment, what's the likelihood of a pistol bladed assault versus rifle, and then within both those categories, what is your latest intel provide for what's being carried out on the streets. Or your operating environment, right?
And that's a lot of what we do at Kontek.
Yeah.
So you'd be surprised how many inquiries I get or site visits I go on. That's usually the first question that I ask. Okay, I want to make this place as secure as possible. What do you perceive as your greatest threat? What are these guys carrying on the street? Are they coming to? Do you think you're going to be directly attacked, or you think it's just going to be some kind of indiscriminate or drive-by style
get a lot of that,
shooting, right? So really getting their heads wrapped around what do you think is going to happen. And I always say whatever level we rest at, maybe go one more,
sure,
just in case. Again, for that flux you talked about, velocity depends on what rounds they're using. Most guys out on the streets are probably carrying 9mm, and they're just kind of
commercially available rounds.
Exactly, something that's cheap, right? Yep. If it's a more specialized attack, if it's a more direct attack, they're probably going to have higher grade ammunition, right? So that's the things you got to think about. Rural versus urban applications. And if you're in the rural, guys are hunting 308s a lot.
Yep.
Right. If you're in the city, you're not going to see too many long guns.
For sure.
Walking on the street. Generally speaking, so that's the kind of the application piece as far as incorporating ballistic glass into your facility. Right?
Sure. And so actually here for the podcast, we brought in a couple samples just to show you guys the difference between thickness, size, that sort of thing for pistol rated glass versus rifle rated glass, and also the different materials that are used to construct both of those. So actually, if you're going to get the, I believe it's UL3 you have with you here, sir.
So what I've got is a UL 752 level 3. That's a pure polycarbonate sample here. So that's 3 shots, 44 Magnum, right there in the center. And as you can see, there's really, I can run my finger across it, no penetration to it. It's very light. It's not very thick. As you can see, it's probably about 1 inch thick or so, something in that range. The benefit of this is, as you can see, as you shoot it, for you guys looking at this on our YouTube channel, if you're listening to it, you got to go check it out because you can't really do much on the podcasting when you listen to it, right? But you can still see, right?
Yep,
Even if I take rounds behind this, I can still see where the threat is. If I need to move the cover, direct somebody to do the counterattack, where to go, I can still see through it. As opposed to your actual glass or glass polycarb mixes, you'll get some spidering effect. You'll still be able to see, just not as well as this,
Yeah, and something that's also interesting about it, on top of that, is typically you'll see this for places that are prone to pistol-based attacks, so gas stations, banks, hospitals, things of that nature, right? And so the benefits of this, like you mentioned, it's lightweight. It's easy to work with in the field for construction groups, and you can do nice architectural finishes. You can have polished edges, and also do frameless setups that look really, really great aesthetically. So those are the big benefits of doing a pure polycarb, as well as also there's also acrylic-based, which look and perform pretty similarly. A bit more brittle, but overall perform fairly similarly to polycarbonate. So with that being said, we have what goes up the Richter scale, if you will, for ballistic glass. So this right here is a sample of mirror tinted NIJ4 ballistic glass. So if you can see, we actually have our interior polycarb spall shield here on the interior side of the glass. And then we have multiple layers of glass fused together, and essentially we have a additional glass polycarb shield on the front where the mirror tint is actually laid in. So benefits of this, you get a lot higher levels of protection. So like we were talking about the UL3, that is all pistol based, right? So this will stop up to 30-06 AP rounds, which travels at a much higher velocity than a pistol round does. So that's the obvious benefit, much higher levels of protection. But it will spider as compared to like pure polycarbonate layups, right? So when the glass is struck, especially after multiple strikes, you'll see the splintering go all the way through, which will reduce your visibility. But at the end of the day, what matters is that it's stopping the bullet from going in near or around your face.
And then with this
is the big difference.
With the ballistic glass that Mike just had there, you got to have a framing system to hold that too, because that glass it's much heavier. I don't know the weight off the top of my head, but I want to say it's in like 20.
It's around 22 to 24. I mean, depending on the manufacturer, 22 to 24 pounds a square foot.
Right. So you have if you have a 4x6 window, it's NIJ4. That's heavy. Yep. So you have to have some kind of custom frame, which we create, and can put it into that facility.
Yep.
So that's something you got to consider too when exploring these ballistic glass and ballistic protection options. Right.
Yeah.
I guess another thing to consider is. Everybody wants a transparent armor. Sometimes you have to couple this stuff with steel, though.
Sure.
Depends on where you're at, and that's our bread and butter is steel. And you can use those interchangeably. Depends on your facility, right? So that's something just to keep in mind too. Some people have just an all steel wall, but hey, we got to put glass in it so we can see, right? It's common sense stuff, but you have to say it at times.
Oh, for sure. And kind of with that, right, there's a whole bunch of use cases for ballistic glass, right? So like we talked about them, it could be a transaction window at a bank, it could be a transaction window at a pharmacy, all the way to areas that are needed to be protected in government facilities, police departments, and then more so to the obvious, and a lot of what we do in the Department of Defense and nuclear security space where they require high levels of protection across their entire facility. So with that being said, something that we get a lot, the last two things I really want to quickly hit on is, this is more so for the commercial market, the DoD, I feel, and the commercial nuclear market, and those that work around that type of material a lot, they're pretty accustomed to what the cost impact is to have that kind of protection. What we see a lot, though, on the private sector and commercial sector, especially people that are looking into this for the first time, don't realize like the actual cost of ballistic glass. And so to give you a basic range, just so when you're going out there shopping in the market, like kind of what Chase was showing earlier, pure polycarbonate, rated for, slower pistol rounds, those can start anywhere from $20 to $30 a square foot in that range. That's material delivered. Installation's a kind of a case-by-case scenario. But once you get into the heavy-duty ballistic glass, so you get into UL8, NIJ4, things of that nature, then you're getting into the ballpark of around $120 to $140 a square foot for that level of ballistic glass. So it's very, very easy to get into the tens and tens of thousands of dollars if you're doing multiple windows, and that's just the nature of the business. That is what it requires to stop high velocity rounds.
So the good news with that, I guess, is good news and bad news. Bad news is, yes, it does cost money. It can be expensive, right? Good news is once it's in there, it's there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's going to do exactly what it's designed to do. And hopefully it never gets used. Mm-hmm. But, that's an obstacle I always have to overcome in the field when I'm on sales visits is, hey, this costs a lot of money. I don't think it's in our budget. Okay, cool. We can do this in pieces. We can do this in phases. Yep. But at the end of the day, you have to think, if you don't have ballistic protection and something happens, what is your insurance going to cost? You have to pay for, heaven forbid, a funeral. Yeah. Or what kind of payout is that? Is it worth putting a $40,000 window system in, or $4 million on a payout or an insurance claim or anything like that? That's stuff that you have to overcome with the city hall. And we're pretty good about getting as much information to the end user as possible if we have to come on site and speak with the city hall or the city manager, whoever, and say, hey, this is the product, I'm the world's worst salesman, but I just want you guys to be safe. Yep. Here's how much it's going to cost. We can scale it up or down, depends on what's going on. But at the end of the day, I'd rather you have it not need it than need it not have it. It's kind of
100%.
cliche, but that's
true.
really the world we're living in right now.
No, without a doubt. And the last thing I want to hit on, because we also get this a lot across all sectors, is ballistic glazing or film that is manufactured versus like true ballistic glass that is purpose built to do that specifically. So the 2 cents I'll give, and Chase, you work with this stuff a lot, so I'll let you kind of wrap it up. Is one of the main manufacturers, it's a great product. So 3M produces great ballistic and blast film for different applications. There's a lot of caveats to it though, in which to actually get a ballistic rating or force entry rating out of that glass. So films are great for blunt force bats, hammers, whatever the case may be. And essentially what that film is doing is keeping all of that glass together, right? Essentially sandwiching it. But once you get into the ballistic realm, where people are looking to get low-rated pistol protection, lower velocity, slower rounds, on that window, there's a lot of parameters such as existing commercial window thickness, quality of the existing glass. There's a lot of factors that go into it. You can't just pick any piece of glass and say, hey, I'm going to place this film on here, and now it's ballistic. There's a lot of other parameters that have to be present for that stuff to work effectively. So people are naturally attracted to film because it's a lot less expensive and it's easy to apply. But again, the most you're going to get out of it is pistol round protection, and there's a lot of caveats to what your existing glass and its makeup to actually allow it to perform and stop pistol rounds. So that's my 2 cents, and there's also some great videos out there on the internet that kind of that demonstrate the difference between ballistic glass and glazing.
And we get that a lot. Just again to throw my 2 cents on it to piggyback off what you just said, as we used to say in the Marines, right? With the film, if you're, and I guess I got to be kind of not too careful, but just as my general rule of thumb, if you've got a 1/2 inch thick piece of commercial glass in there and you throw like a 13 mil film on there, you will probably, and I say that, probably get a very low pistol rating, right. Probably UL1, maybe UL2. Again, depends on the charge behind that round. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't stamp it though.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been tested in a lab. But they say you can get it, but unless somebody can come in and give me some literature on it,
sure,
I wouldn't feel comfortable just having the film. Let's just say. For ballistic protection. Right. Now, if you're looking again for forced entry, all day long, 8 mil, 13 mil film is going to delay somebody up to like an hour getting in. You come in with a crowbar, an axe, whatever. You can shoot through a door. It's not going to stop the rounds. Even if they shoot it, they're still not going to shoot the glass out.
Right.
That is what the film actually does.
Yep.
Is it keeps it together. So when anybody's asking, hey, can I put film on my glass? I guess you can. But for me, I'm just not comfortable enough to do it. And I tell people that on the front end all the time. Look, you may get it. That's the risk you're incurring. I'm not putting anything on us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And a lot of it depends on what your desired end state is, right?
Correct.
And budget obviously does play a factor.
100%.
So something is better than nothing.
Yes.
But it's always good to educate yourself on the full spectrum of capability. And so we'll wrap up with that. But one thing for all of our viewers, if you didn't leave with anything, this is one thing, especially if you already have ballistic glass, is, especially with COVID, it's been a thing for quite some time now. So on your interior spall shield, please only clean your glass, especially if it's polycarb like we have over there, or the interior of traditional ballistic glass, which is lined with a spall shield, which is polycarbonate as well, is do not clean it with anything than mild soap and warm water and a microfiber cloth. Chemicals, Clorox, Windex, anything of that nature will cause what is called crazing, right? So essentially, polycarbonate is actually porous, so those chemicals actually get inside the small pores within the polycarbonate and will cause it to start cracking throughout. It's not really going to affect your overall ballistic capability or protection capability, but it will obviously decrease your visibility out, and obviously the aesthetic of the window will be shot. So anyways, if you got anything, that's our last little note for you guys. But with that, if you have any questions, reach out to us at info@kontekindustries.com. Be sure to like and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and as well as LinkedIn. And if you guys have anything else, just give us a holler out there. Thanks.